I am Brian Wright. I'm the principal of Town Planning and Urban Design Collaborative, and also co-founder of Character Development. Craig, who bet be back in a second, is my partner in character development. So the Town Planning and Urban Design Collaborative is my design firm, right? So we're working on the master plan. And then there we go. And so anybody first timers? Anybody who wasn't here last night? Great. Welcome. So last night we did an opening presentation, and we talked about some high level planning principles and all of that. But I also explained that this is the very beginning and that we don't have a plan. We had put pen to paper until this morning, and we're here to kind of hear everybody's hopes, dreams, aspirations, fears, and concerns. I heard lots of fears and concerns, so I think I'm time growing at aspirations and dreams. So we have these topical meetings. Oh, we also did a hands-on workshop where each table had a map of the property and jotted down their big ideas, and so those are all walls here. And so we've been extracting the information and the ideas from those maps. Each table presented their ideas as well. And so we have these meetings to talk about more in detail certain topics. Last one was utilities, infrastructure, and transportation, also known as the traffic meeting. And then this one is the open space meeting. And so that's me, I'm Brian. Greg.
Yep. Janice Stevenson, Jim Stevenson. We live at 4284 Warren Road.
Okay.
We've been there since '84. And it was a gravel road, so we've seen development.
Yeah, yes, a little bit. Yes. I'm gonna ask you, what size lot do you have? Okay.
Well, we actually have 2 lots. We have 6.5 acres.
Oh, wow. Okay.
At Walters, I live at 4291 Warren. And I'm probably not going to say a lot today because this is not my issues. I'm aware that there's requirements for open spaces and I'm okay with the requirements. I get this feeling that's important to you because specialize doing a good job. I'm just listening.
Good. I'm glad you've gotten that feeling. That's good. That's a good thing.
I'm Julie. This is Brian Van Orman. We live
With
on
an I or a Y?
Hi.
Hey, let's go.
We live on Cedarmont Drive. Oh,
We live at the end of Warren, so
Okay.
these guys are our neighbors. Kind
One of the things that's fun about, well, hopefully one of the many things that's fun about this kind of process is a lot of times we'll actually find that neighbors will get to know each other who didn't already. And so, it's always fun to come together around a common cause, let's say, if you will.
Yeah, I got a bunch of neighbors on Warren Road, I guess. I'm at 4240, first 5-acre lot right after the Warren Court there. You're at the bend and you're as you're driving up, you're on the left side? Just before you get to that big bend. Oh, okay.
Past the light.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So, so anyway, I've talked a lot. So I'll let it go to the next one.
Kevin Lindsay, City of Franklin Parks Department.
Kevin, Craig, nice to meet you first. Yeah.
Ariella Stanford, I'm a planner for the city. Chelsea Randolph, I'm also a planner for the city of Franklin.
Andrew Orr, City of Franklin.
Yes.
Scotty Bernick, landscape architect with Reagan Smith.
Rick Canada, I live at 4348 North Chapel Road, about a mile down the road down there. And I'm sorry I missed this morning and last night.
We've recorded both, so you'll be able to watch them online.
You probably knew a lot of people here last night. I've been at this for quite some while, trying to control development despite the planning for the city. Our biggest problem is that we live in the Franklin urban growth boundary area. And unfortunately, by plan, or lack of planning, their part, they have they don't consider at all what we have to say. They don't care about the fact that they're destroying the area that we live in. And most importantly, sadly, our republic, based on representative government, those of us who live in the urban growth boundary have none. The city of Franklin makes decisions by people who we do not get to elect. We don't get to vote for them. We don't get anything. So, I mean, it's the most, talk about the attack on democracy. We've heard that crap for the last 4 years. But this truly is an example of the city, and these folks sitting to my left over here, we have no voice. They can come and do anything they want. We beat them in 2018 when Smith wanted to develop this for us, almost 500 acres. We knocked that one down in 2018. But they've come back, they've changed it around, and they're about to approve it again. And then they'll probably figure out, twist some rules so he can be annexed into the city. So the frustration level that you hear with me is palpable. The fact that we cannot have no representation is despicable. I'm just here to see what y'all are going to do here, because I missed the traffic thing, and of course the traffic. Anybody who wants to build anything on this road because they made it 5 lanes is obscene, because we've got an intersection up here that they haven't even, I lived in Alabama for almost a decade.
What part?
I lived in South Alabama. I was in the military, and off and on for almost a decade, over a 20-year period. Alabama, they got an expression. They said, well, we're fixing to.
Yeah,
And y'all, we're fixing to. And they think that counts as doing something. Well, they're fixing to fix that intersection, fixing to. 20, 30, 40 years. Meanwhile, traffic backs up here in the morning at 8:30 in the morning, all the way back to the senior living facility. And, what used to be a 5-minute drive, 10-minute drive from my house to Home Depot, by 30 minutes is normal because of the traffic. So the frustration level and what you guys are going to do here, I'm just here to find out. But it's just, to me, it's poor planning, it's poor representation, and the fact that they need to literally stop whole development until such time as they can get the infrastructure going. I'm sure you heard a lot about infrastructure. I probably missed that meeting. And we don't have the infrastructure, you don't have the sewage, you don't have the water. God only knows you got way too much traffic. Okay?
He's right on that. I'm Susan Parker. I live in Abington Ridge. Been there about 10 years. I've loved it. I said last night, we know sometimes there's a farm. It's always sad when someone sells it, but we know it's their right. But you kind of think, okay. But I was saying, I never expected this area even to be a thought of being developed. Not even a thought, because there's all these existing homes here that it just felt like a safe area to me of like, I love the charm. I love the land. I love the trees. Honestly, it makes my heart sing.
And you in the back?
Brad Slayton with Reagan Smith, so civil engineer side, so we're catching up on, I guess, in water and sewer and traffic as I can. That's the kind of your conversation. Thanks. Appreciate you being here.
Perfect. So this is a great time for this meeting to happen. Oh, sorry, I had another person come in. Yes.
Oh, hi, I'm Heather Eusebio, City of Franklin Parks Department.
So I finally got to make the first mark, put digital into digital paper, if you will. And the first thing that I've been doing is starting to outline where all the existing trees are, their canopy is and everything, and see what's open and what's canopy and all that. Because for me, my way that I design is to start with the site first, the natural features and things, and then kind of work from there. And so this ties right into a discussion about open space. The marks that I've made so far are green, except for where I've been looking at, we talked about in the last meeting, potential connection locations, stuff like that. So when it comes to open space, I mentioned last night in the opening presentation that there seems to be a shortage of parks in the area. There's the ballpark, things that aren't too far away, but there's not a place where, you can just go and like walk on a trail or whatever. Now I say that, and I live in Franklin, but I don't come over here to go to a park normally. We have lots of parks in my neighborhood and around, but, am I correct in that? Are you guys gonna like, what are you talking about? Because a lot of times people are like, there's a park right over there. You just, not on the map or whatever. So
I don't think that's a high priority.
parks
I
are,
don't think that's a high priority. And I'm speaking for us, but I don't think green space, walking space. We have walkers up and down Warren Road all the time because we do have a great canopy of trees.
Mhm.
But I don't know that that's if you're taking your children to a park, you want to go to Pinkerton where there's activities. If you have children in sports, you go to where that is. We want speaking again for myself, not everybody, but you want a quiet neighbor. We're not looking for people to come in and walk
yeah. So,
outside of what you're talking about for your development.
so then you say, I don't want that. I don't want it,
Correct.
right? So, and that's fine. The going to Pinkerton Park, in order to do that, anyone who does that,
I do that on a regular, I used to do it on a regular basis, go to Pinkerton, take my dog, walk up in the hills. go
yes.
walk-
And
walk
so
away.
you are part of the reason why it takes half an hour to get to Home Depot.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But you know something, I don't go, because I'm retired. So I don't go in the peak hours, so I get there in a few
Fair
minutes.
enough, fair enough.
I'm smart enough to know that, I don't go between 8 and 9.
You
I go-
pick
The reason it takes so long to get there is all the development Franklin allowed on others. There's high density housing that's just, just kill the traffic at 96.
That's 4:20 in the afternoon last Thursday, coming from Kroger.
Yeah, and
School's not in session yet. Traffic will be horrible.
Reiterating what you said, Franklin has more planners than Davidson. It's just, I just want to, and with high density, I keep hearing this, high density housing, that's not what we want. We don't want high density housing in our neighborhood. Or-
You just look
close
all
to-
around. That's what we want to keep. The character
Right.
of our side of town.
right.
You can go out Highway 96 West where there's all the available property and do what you want to out there, make a West Haven, make another subdivision and put in the grocery stores and things for them. We don't need that right
That's correct.
So,
Correct.
so y'all are on 5 acre lot.
Mhm.
Uh, what other lot sizes do we have represented at the table here?
Probably like 1.25 acres.
Anybody else?
8.5 acres.
8.5 acres,
Out
okay.
of a 50-acre tract, there's only 4 other homes.
Got it.
And we have our own park. Thank you very much.
Oh, on your 8.5 acres.
We,
Yeah, I got it.
and
Yeah,
we,
right.
and that's why, again, that's why we moved out here. Didn't move out here, and moved out, back, our stories, we lived in Brentwood when we first came here,
Right.
on 5 acres. That became impossible because of, again, the same thing, I left Brentwood because of the developing of an area that was beautiful, was pristine. Anybody remembers what Split Log Road used to look like back in the late 80s and the 90s? That's where we were. It was a chip and tar road when we bought our 5 acres. City of Franklin came out there and absolutely ruined it. I mean, Franklin, Brentwood. I mean, it's a high density road now. It's an absolute disaster. So we've seen this play out before. So we came out here thinking that we were safe because we were far enough out of the city and everything else. Didn't know about the UGB. And so we all came out here, and I think these people also, we came out because of that. Like the lady says, because of the area, never expecting it to develop, never expecting what these people are doing. The state of Tennessee had no business widening 96 when there's so many other serious projects they've got to do. I can name 2 right, but again, I already said the intersection. How about widening Interstate 65 all the way down to at least the Saturn Parkway?
That's a federal project.
It's, thank you very much. It's a state and federal project, but it's still both. And the state can facilitate that action being taken place.
All that to say, we're stuck with what we have on 65 and 96. We don't want to add another
We don't want to add,
300 plus units that probably 2 cars per unit or more. Add that traffic to what we already have.
Smith
So-
property is talking about 13, right now it's approved for about 1,300 residents.
Where's the Smith property at?
Smith
The
property
farm
is the
Down the way
the
there.
intersection of,
By Arrington Post Office.
no, it's closer. It's North Chapel Road and 96. It surrounds Freedom Elementary School. It's on both sides of Freedom Elementary School, was back behind it, and then where the Bellevue Church of Christ is, on the corner of North, it's the property across North Chapel from it, and the property catty corner from it, south of 96 on North Chapel. To include the city of Franklin, putting a fire station in there.
Oh, yeah.
On the very edge of their existing boundary, they'd put a fire station. Sure.
So can we pause for a second? I want to go back to one thing you said a minute ago about the urban growth boundary. So for those who don't know, you have the urban growth boundary here, the county and all the municipalities coordinated and work together to figure out where they're going to preserve, where they're going to grow. And the part of the decision making, and this is sort of best practices planning wise, right? You plan for expansion to go where it's closest to existing infrastructure, right? So you're not sitting out and spending tons of taxpayer dollars to go off far off lands and whatnot. Now, that said, it's not a city of Franklin thing. It's not a Williamson County thing. Like, we work all over the country, and the concept of an urban growth boundary in Texas, they call it extraterritorial jurisdiction. The idea that not being represented by, but the municipality has say so over. It's just absolutely normal all over the country. So, and while it may be frustrating, it isn't a Franklin thing or a Williamson County problem. But that said too, always when there's an urban growth boundary or a extraterritorial kind of situation going on where it's the county, but there's a plan for the cities to grow in these directions. And this conversation here is repeated all along for all the municipalities, people in the growth boundaries. So they said, well, we don't want to be in the growth boundaries. And I was watching some of the public comments for like when they were working on this growth management plan, and I saw several people coming and speaking, saying, "Hey, Thompson Station, hey, Spring Hill, we'd like to not be our property to not be included in it." And others were like, "Yes, we would like to be included in it." Now it's based on their preferences. Somebody was like, "Yes, we own this farm." So like the Armistead project that we've been talking about here, that Craig and I are working on in Franklin, the family has owned that farm for 140 years. And the last of the farming generation passed on, and they were ready to do something else with it and not to farm it anymore. And so if they hadn't been allowed to develop the property, all of their inheritance of their children and all of that stuff would have been lost. They've been planning on that and sort of watching the city kind of grow around them, and everyone's been having the benefit of looking at their beautiful farm for all these years and having visual squatters' rights over it, and so they were allowed to change that, and they did it in a thoughtful way that has had really zero opposition to it, even though there's 3,000 homes across the street from it who are quite opinionated.
Thought they lived in across the farm.
They thought they were looking at a farm forever, and so, but fortunately, because it was a thoughtful planning process, that there was an opposition. Now, that said, kind of looking forward here, when you are in a setting like this, right? Because you guys are on 5 acres, you're on 8 acres, and as you said, I have my own park. You don't have a park, right? And the other neighbors in the subdivisions around that used to be on 5-acre, 50-acre tracts that were then subdivided years ago that are not now, compared to y'all's lots, high density, it's different, right? And they were built sort of during the heyday of suburban era, right? And so you have all these disconnected streets, all these cul-de-sacs, dumping all the traffic onto Arno, onto 96. And that development pattern is what has caused the traffic problems that you hate. It isn't the actual number of people, number of cars. It's the way that the traffic can only go one way. It's the same thing in Spring Hill. It's the same thing in Nolensville and Nolensville Road. When you look at it, you go like, oh, of course, that road has to take all the traffic. Now, when you start thinking about what do you want to do, and you say, well, let's continue the pattern that we have here. Well, a few different things happen, right? It may be great for you right now, may not be great for you in 5 years or 10 years, right? Somebody last night, I think, said, this is interesting enough. Count me in to move in 6 months. across the street and this neat, whatever. And so we were working in New Hampshire one time, and they were in this, it was Londonderry, New Hampshire, and all 1 acre zoning, like literally edge to edge 1 acre zoning. Even though it was a historic town, it had the little hamlet and village center and town green and all that stuff. And so the people there were coming and they were like, I don't want anything but 1 acre, 1 acre. We've got to keep doing what we're doing. And I said, well, what do you like about the 1 acre? Oh, it's just quality of life and all this stuff. And ultimately what we discovered is the reason why they had 1 acre zoning had nothing to do with quality of life. It was the size of the lot that you needed to have a septic field. And that was what shaped their whole town. Now they got used to it and they liked it, and that was great. Before that, it was big farms. And then they made these tiny, they're like 1 acre lots. And then the people that were still saying that they only wanted 1 acre going forward, I started looking around and I was like, well, what do you do when you don't want to take care of 1 acre lot anymore? And they said, well, I'll just hire someone to come take care of me. It's like, wow, that's really nice that you can do that, but not everyone can afford to do that. And I said, in order to downsize, you have to leave your town that you may have lived in your whole life. And so they were like, oh, I hadn't realized that. And the fact that the entire population there was aging, they weren't young people because there were only 1 acre lots, and getting out of school or even being a young professional or whatever, like you may not be able to afford a 1 acre lot. And so we all have our preferences and those sorts of things for where we are, and that's great. And if you look at the city of Franklin and you look at the region here in Williamson County, the predominance of single family detached homes on reasonably sized lots is wildly out balanced, right? Not that it needs to be balanced, but I'm just saying there's tons of that. And so if you think about like, well, what's the next step in my life? What do I want to do next? I always want to take care of a 1 acre yard or a 5 acre, 6 acre. Or do I want to have somewhere where I might be able to go where I'm not going to be put off into a senior center in a strip mall or whatever, which is a lot of times what the option is. Or if my kids want to come back, where are they going to live? I want them living with me, so maybe it'd be nice to have something for them. So as we've been thinking about this housing, crisis that you hear about around the country, but also in the region, we've been thinking like, well, what are options for different housing choices that aren't necessarily the same as what you have here? Maybe some of it, but not all of it, right? One of the things that's, sort of tricky about subdivisions that were built during the sort of time when everybody was building these sort of post-war subdivisions is that every single lot tends to be the same for miles and miles. Boom, 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 boom. And at some point, you loved living in your house. And, I grew up in neighborhoods just like these. I didn't get to live on the cul-de-sac, but played in it plenty of times. But everything was the same. And, if you think about the places that people, in the postcard picture, right? It's not that. There's a variety, there's a difference. And that's part of why sort of the wisdom of the planning departments and all that. And they look at Envision Franklin and some of the other planning documents, it talks about having a mix of different house sizes, lot sizes, or housing types, depending on your design concept that they have there. And so what it does is it makes a place of interest that is different sometimes than is what's around. And so as we've been thinking about like what to do, since we've been talking to everybody last night and today, it's like, okay, well, what are the needs in the future? What everybody's talking about to us now is what their desires are for today, right? They're not thinking about in the future. And so as we go through that, wanting to understand, like I said last night, we know what you don't want, but assuming something happens here, we'd like to know what could be additive to you. And if you don't have a lot that's large enough to have your own private park, or if your streets are, yes, they have trees, and so they're somewhat shady, but maybe there's a possibility of something being even more walkable, or having a place where you could go walk to a destination as opposed to for just recreation. And so those are the kinds of things we're thinking about. Now, somebody mentioned at one point they were concerned, like, could there be like a big box store here or something like that? And so I think part of the discussion needs to be the degree to which development occurs. So I mentioned last night in the presentation that there's, that we have this neighborhood commercial, in Vision Franklin, if we were to annex into the city on the corner there. And, you know, when we think about neighborhood commercial, it's like neighborhood scale, like something that you would, we're asking last night, like what's, if you could have commercial, if they'll say you had to have commercial, what would you like to have? What might you walk to or ride a bike to, whatever, in your neighborhood, like, so you have your, like an historic neighborhood center. Now, we are here to talk about open space and conservation, right? So, I've heard some no votes for open space, but also in the past discussions last night and online and stuff, we've heard votes for open space.
Well, I think a park and trails and things would be good for a couple of reasons. To keep the rural feel, we have space, trees, and also to maybe prevent houses from being put on that same spot. We could have open, you know, a place where we can just take the dog for a different walk today. Neighborhood.
Well,
that we go.
I would also like to point out, these guys all live on Warren Road, and I walk on Warren Road quite a bit, and the reason I like walking on Warren Road is it's shady. Plus, you see a lot of wildlife. Where's all this wildlife gonna go?
Yeah, that was,
That'll be disappearing. I don't see rabbits running around. I won't see wild turkeys running around. I
yeah.
won't see deer running around. That'll be all gone. The animals.
I think we should also,
Where does he go?
That was one point I wanted to make. It's like that Coletta Park, you know, they're talking about developing there. Well, on Warren Road, on the other side of the road, it's very steep. There's houses set up on, you know, stilts and that. It's a very steep ravine. And, you know, they're talking about developing a lot of that, which would be difficult. You'd have to be filled in and everything. But most of there's a big wildlife pocket there. And so, yeah, we had a deer coming up to the fence the other day. We got wild turkeys going around there.
Right.
And sometimes I don't get up early that much, but I was like, sometimes 6 o'clock in the morning, I'll see like 6 or 7 deer. And it's so surreal. And so then as far as the open space that you're talking about, they got it on this map here. It says save the trees. I'm like, I'm one of these, save these big pockets, because I know what a lot of developments like to do is put a, 50-foot wide strip here and here. Wildlife are not going to live in those little strips. You're going to need a big pocket of trees. So I would like to see that. And they were talking about the corner. Yeah, that's not great for retail, but I mean, I was a traffic engineer in LA, planner, and often we put like a neighborhood gateway kind of a thing. And if they're going to have Arno Village or something, you could have some nice, like a babbling brook along here with planting and stuff, and a wall, a nice wall along there with the Arno Hills on it or something. It would make this corner nice, and it would shelter it from, so I would like to see something there. I'd like to see, as they said, save the trees, a big pocket here where the wildlife, if you just take all that out and just put little strips in there, you've essentially displaced the wildlife.
Well,
And as I was talking earlier, any deer that are coming across Arno Road.
to your point about the, if you have open space, you're not necessarily having development there. One of the reasons why, just diagrammatically, if you zoom out and you look like, this would be sort of you don't have park space over here, as I was talking about. We may not be concerned about it, but most of the time, most cities try to have parks distributed a certain distance from all homes and whatnot. And so the reason that you don't is because when these developments went in, they were allowed to build edge to edge, lots, just all lots, right? And so the city has, in addition to, and mentioned last night, this idea they call them design concepts. You can think of it as like future land uses, or you can think of it as like someone's building what you would build there, right? So they have a couple of different design concepts. The single family residential one that is most of our property is shown in doesn't really have a requirement for open space. 5%, something like
Not
that.
in the vision.
Not envision planning, but the zoning ordinance would ultimately require you to do it, but there isn't one. But they do have a couple of different design concepts, one called Village Green, one called Neighborhood Green, in which you're required to preserve 60% of the land in one and 70% of the land in the other. And so I think, those are worth exploring because you're basically clustering, you're able to, required to, but from our perspective, able to preserve the land. You can have the sort of larger, more contiguous habitat corridors and areas and those sorts of things. And then we can turn those, make them available to the public, as opposed to, and by the public, I mean everyone and you guys, right? So these kind of parks are not the kind of thing where like wouldn't have like parking lots and stuff where people like go to Pinkerton Park. Like, that's not what I mean. These are just like neighborhood parks. So like, for instance, if you're familiar with West Haven, it has parks all over the place. No one's, I mean, I guess some people do. No one's driving to West Haven to go hang out in the little square with the fountain in it. It's like they may go take their prom pictures there. They're not bringing their kids to frolic there. There's other parks.
That was one point I was going to say. As far as parks, I think, you look at them more as serving if you're going to put some multifamily housing or whatever in the middle here, I would say put it in the center and kind of hide it. But if you put some in here, you could have a park around there and have this park mainly serving this community. If you got 300 homes or whatever, and people will want to walk, but to expect this to be like a regional park, you'd have to put in some nice eating places, or different amenities that you don't want to draw a lot of traffic here. So I think that's what most people like older like myself is like, well, I probably am not going to go to this park unless I was going to walk in my dog or something. But I think, but as far as the property value, yeah, if you just have all the houses clustered together with, no park, it's with a park around there and a little greenery, it's gonna raise the property value of all our houses. So it's like, I don't think we'd really object to, I mean, most of us would like to have a little park space, but whether we're gonna, this is not a high priority that we're gonna be going there all the time, probably. Right.
Well, if we could use the trees to like as a barrier almost to like segregate.
Yeah.
I was gonna try not to use that word. No, because right, when we were talking earlier about driving down Arno, it feels like we're in a rural setting and just don't want to be looking at.
Well, and I was noticing when I was out there this morning that our side of the road, we've kept all the trees, and on the other side of the road, not so much, right?
Right.
So, maybe we have a planting program too, so we can get it going on both sides of the street. But
also, it's also important to, I mean, look, we did show the graphic last night that Williamson County is growing, and of course everybody here is concerned about what it's going to mean for them. But let's also think about what it's going to mean for the people that aren't represented here, which are people that might live here. And what are they gonna want? What is gonna keep them off of our roads? What is gonna keep them, and increase your property value and their property value? The truth is that this is a private asset, right? This is a private asset, just like yours is a private asset. So we're here representing the group that wants to take their asset, obviously make it appreciate, just like you want it to, but also create something that is additive to the community. And we think parks and open space are, probably known to be a great way to do just that, to be both additive to the community and also create an appreciable asset. And so, so that's why we're here today, is say, hey, what do you want to see in an open space, and what function should it serve, not only for you, but also for the people that may live in this community. And I'm starting to hear it. I'm starting to hear like, hey, we might want to walk our dogs there. Or we might want to, go for a walk in there. And you may want it to buffer the look and try and maintain a rural feel.
Too, don't you
And the
find
sound,
it's
sure.
sound?
Yeah. But that's the idea behind these design concepts that, that the city of Franklin and has adopted for what how I want to plan. All right, well, this makes our land and our city more valuable and more desirable. And so that's what we're trying to hear from our neighbors. What if you had to have a park, what would be in it?
Like,
Right?
I don't know, like man-made lakes, they have in certain communities, that
Wow.
people walk around and, it's just a drawing place for people to go to, but also, I think it serves an actual function for the
Stormwater.
water reclamation and all that.
Yeah.
Which I know nothing about, but.
Also a place to attract wildlife.
Yeah.
Wildlife, I've got about a half-acre pond on my property. And we have deer, God knows what else down there, especially when it's dry. You come in and it is, talk about wake up in the morning, look out there and there's a doe and 2 fawns. It's just a remarkable sight to see. Thank God every day I can get up and go look at something.
So we talk about things called wildlife corridors, right? So you can do a bunch of little pocket parks, or you can create a sort of a system of open space that actually creates opportunities for wildlife to migrate, get from one habitat to another, and actually create diversity. And that's and migration, all that stuff. So that's an important design concept that we hold. That's what we would look for opportunities in there to create not just connectivity for humans, but connectivity for the non-humans.
I had that slide. There was a slide last night that I showed, talked about a wildlife friendly design concept. And it's one of those things that doesn't cost any more money to do. It just takes a little bit of forethought and desire and care to do it. So I was like, why don't developers do that? Because, if you're familiar, you've never been over to West Haven, it's probably one of the most dense, besides apartments, most dense developments in Franklin. And the rabbit population there must be 50 rabbits per block. It's like traffic calming, like they're there. And then I drove through one time and they have that big clubhouse there and there's a park in front of it. It's like, it's coming back from the Kroger. It's like 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock at night. There were 8 deer standing in that park. It's like a sort of a formal park, and I was like, what are you guys doing? Like and they just looked at me as I drove around the square. And but they've preserved, there's still tree rows and the big groupings of trees, and then in the back on the hills and stuff. And so the wildlife has places to go. And so they kind of come through. And to your point, it's like a magical moment. I mean, don't think I wasn't taking pictures. There was an armadillo scurrying around in the back.
We have all those.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes. One time there was a possum in our tree, and I put it in the cat carrier and took it in my daughter's bed and woke her up. What
percentage are you talking of, like tree canopy and like open space out of that 75 acres, just to give us?
Yeah, so the
an
city
idea.
requires of the canopy that you have, I'm terrible with numbers, so I'm just, anybody who knows better, I think you have to have 36% preservation of the tree canopy that's there. I think on Armistead, we were required to have over the whole site, it's like 56%, and we had 84%. So above and beyond, it's kind of like our general approach to things. This site is a bit trickier than Armistead because it's quite hilly in some areas. And so we've been looking at examples of developments where they've done a really good job of kind of like building in the hills, but leaving the hills instead of trying to flatten them and take all the trees down. So it's kind of a fancy subdivision. But there's the one that's called Boche. I've seen that Boche project, and it's like you drive in and you go up the hills, and I mean it's wild with how they've incorporated them in there. They just did a great job, and you feel like you're still in the canopy and all of that. And so we've just been looking for ways that we could be sort of more sensitive to the hilly areas as well. And then there's this really amazing part where it just kind of drops down and flattens out, and a ravine makes it sound too narrow. It's like a opposite of a plateau, whatever you call it, a holler. Holler, there we go, holler, right? And it's so amazing when you're down there. So it's such a unique experience. You feel like you're just encompassed by it, and you just want to go there. This great spot to just make that like a feature of this. And there's these great big trees that are there. But there's some drainage that happens there already, so it's not a bunch of underbrush. It nearly feels like a park when you're there already. So it was really cool. So that's what I was showing y'all, looking for these green areas to start with, and then we go backwards from there.
Specifically, I was just, I was talking to Craig before the meeting about, I guess a lot of people have expressed, okay, we want to keep Arno Road like a country feel. And so I was thinking from the input that they don't, people don't worry as much about Murfreesboro here. I mean, my feeling is that we don't want to drive up past Arno and then see high rises right from the roadway here. So even if it's on Murfreesboro, I don't think we want to see any, because on the other side of the highway, you'd see the single family homes, and then you'd see some multi-level right on the roadway. I think maybe they could put a big sound wall along here and put a greenery along there so that it would kind of hide, and then some of the single family lots would line up their backs against Murfreesboro or something. So you wouldn't really see, the small 40-foot wide houses right next to each other, kind of, but you'd have some nice greenery and things like that. So that's what I was wondering, everybody here to help you guide what you're, where you're going to put the open space. Like, is Murphy's is having, is the appearance of Murfreesboro important too? I know the Arno's more important, but
there's actually a small segment of scenic corridor overlay along Murfreesboro Road at the east end from where the corridor?
From Oxford Glen.
From Oxford Glen down to the east, which is like 150-foot scenic corridor buffer set back there. It's sort of logical why it's there, because that's where the most vegetation is on that side, I guess. So that'll be part of our preserved area already. So that's a good idea.
You're thinking in terms of height, are we talking nothing above level?
I mean, even some single family houses would be 3 stories,
Unless they have a basement.
Yeah.
Or where we don't have.
It's Oxford Glen.
Well, it's usually like they call it like two
Stuff
houses.
here.
It's like you've got the roof lines. There's still a story in the stuff. But here, because of the topo, as well, like if we're dealing with the topo, then there could be.
Yeah, they could be
your
low.
point. So, I can't imagine, like, there's probably regulations all right now. Comes to city zoning and stuff. What's the height limit?
It's most likely 2.5, but again, like, based on the current design concepts, what's allowed is single family, and multifamily has gotten mentioned a couple of times. So yeah, I mean, I've let Andrew.
No high rises.
No high rises.
Yeah, I think you said high rise. So none of that.
The consensus
I meant
last
like-
night was they didn't even want to see, the people that were represented last night, I think we had over 100 people here. They didn't want to see multifamily homes. They wanted it to be single.
That's not an option.
Represents.
It's not
Yeah,
an option
that's
unless we
currently
change.
Not an option in the design concept. The design professionals can request a plan amendment to change that.
Also,
But it doesn't mean that staff would support it.
remember, right now, like we said at the beginning, current design concept requires very little open space, 5%. If we want to change the design concept, then we would go for something that would allow for a little bit more diverse housing types, including multifamily, which would be like
Like we showed last night.
quadplexes and duplexes.
Look like a house.
Things like that. But they do require open space. So just like everything, there's a trade-off. You might have the same number of units, but one preserves open space and the other doesn't. And the other allows certain uses and the others doesn't. So just like everything, it's like, you want 100 homes with with no open space, or 100 smaller homes with a lot of open space. And either way, you're getting 100 homes. But do you want open space with it? And that's the conversation. That's sort of the, so if we were to change the design concept or ask the, the city to allow us to change, that would be the trade-off that we'd be looking for. And it's hard.
I mean,
It's
this
hard.
topography may require you to ask the city for something because it's kind of an odd shape.
The
And
parcel
it's-
is odd. and-
Yeah, the
and
parcels are odd and
Yeah.
the topography all by itself.
That's part of the reason why we were interested in getting involved, because it's like such a challenge to be solved, to do something special. And we're like, okay, yeah, because it's going to take that unique approach to come up with something that is even possible or feasible on this site. It's a quirky one, for sure.
So is 100 homes like a minimum? You guys
I just made it.
Oh, okay.
I
I was just wondering.
I think
I meant to say
everybody's
5.
I think in favor of lots of open space. I think it goes back before we run out of time. You had mentioned that you would go back to transportation and the problem we're going to have on 96. All of this sounds wonderful. If we had a 4-lane on Arno Road where everybody in this complex could get in and out and we could all still get in and out, wonderful. But that's not what we're looking at.
What do you mean? Why not?
Highway 96 is already crowded and dangerous as it is.
Yeah, but I'm saying on,
You add more houses that, unless you're gonna connect to Highway 96, all the traffic's gonna come on Arno Road. Am I wrong?
no, that's correct. So, but I think you said if Arno Road was wide enough to accommodate that.
It's not. That's what we're saying. It's
Right.
not.
Oh, yeah. So one of the things we talked about in the last meeting was the idea that, when you do your traffic study, the results are, we're going to have a backup here, we're going to have an issue there, da, 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 da. Therefore, you have to go fix this, you have to fix that. So when I was talking about our Armistead project, we're having to make off-site improvements. It's 96 and Macatcher intersection. We're having to make improvements at Franklin Road
4 miles away.
4 miles away. And so it's
So could we see those when you have that developed and on paper, what you're actually gonna do?
Well, that'll be post traffic study, but I can almost assure you that we are going to, that whoever develops this parcel as a master plan and adds all this traffic is going to have to improve Arno Road beyond what is already scheduled.
We talked to people who live on there, and what they were saying was 5 years ago, they tried to widen it. I told the story last night, and then I was told I was wrong, but I learned that I wasn't wrong. And 5 years ago, they put the stakes in the yard and they're ready to go. And then they discovered that everyone's septic field was in their front yards and they had to stop the project. And so they're like, well, maybe you could put it on your property on that side. And we said, yeah, we were thinking the same thing. You got room to do it. And so one of the things we talked about in that meeting was the idea that development, strangely enough, can not only cause problems, but can also solve problems. And so some of these things we can accomplish. Now, at the beginning of this discussion, somebody mentioned the intersection and it never getting improved or in 20 years or whatever. It's my understanding that it's underway now. I see the flags out there, there's state surveys and all that stuff. It's designed, it's funded, it's been announced.
It was supposed to start on July 7th. I don't know why.
Which intersection?
AT&T.
Arno 96 intersection.
AT&T did their.
Arrow 96.
Hasn't started yet. And again, it's still a traffic problem. We were in our house when 96 was a 2-lane road. Okay. We heard for 20 years, it's going to be wide and it's going to be wide, and it finally was. If you're making a right-hand turn onto Arno Road to go all the way out or into our subdivision, traffic stops because of the red light to let us out of Cedarmont and to help those trying to get out. Now they're making a turn lane. So the red light's going to be red. Traffic's going to just keep coming, which makes it hard for us to get out of our neighborhood.
You can barely get out on the school mornings.
School mornings and afternoons, please do a study to know how far traffic backs up during the school hours.
Yeah.
Because you've got Page Middle School and you've got Page High School out there, and
What-
traffic can back up extremely far. So any improvements that you can do, would they be done before you start this development, road improvements to show that you can accommodate this traffic?
Yeah, oh yeah. Usually they're required by the time you receive that.
Certificate of occupancy. So that means somebody can move into a place. So
Craig, I was gonna say, we talked about a little bit. I mean, there's some opportunities to make improvements. Like at Cedarmont, I guess it's too close to put a four-way stop. And normally you don't put it, it's back up, but there would be a unique way you could put like a median in there across. If you're going to have the two left turn lanes, extend that extra lane all the way down to Cedarmont there so that you could turn right into that left turn lane. And the other cars coming up, Arno, would have their choice of one left turn lane and one right turn lane or whatever. So there's ways to do that. Another thing over here at Albany Point, you could, if you put a road through here that came up to Murfreesboro, a lot of this traffic coming up Arno all the way to the signal, where they turn right, they could just take this little shunt here and turn right. And some of the cars coming up there, although there's not that many, most of them are going left. But so there are some opportunities that maybe, could be taken to help alleviate some of the existing issues.
I heard people from Albany Drive saying that it would be helpful for them if there were a light there, because it's a nightmare to get out. And then people who live further down the way said that might help them too, because at least there's a break, the light stop traffic. And then
And you do have access. We put that on our thing last night. I know that's not what maybe people in the neighborhood, although to be able to get out and make a left-hand turn, that would be to their advantage. But road improvements are bad now is what we're trying to say. So unless they're improved, you're going to add all this to it. And this commercial area right here.
So you would be in favor of us changing the design concept to moving the commercial away from the corner?
I don't know how you would get to that
Yes.
commercial
Yeah.
boundary.
Can't put it in the corner.
Here.
Yeah.
They can't have a curb cut all the way till here, right? You said Oxford Glen, so if you put the retail, then they're driving all the way back here.
Road
What a
here.
lovely story about all this stuff. We have McKay's Mill where there's a grocery store and we've got, most people go into Kroger or Publix because they're running all their errands for the drugstore and whatnot. I don't know what kind of commercial spot we need in this area.
yeah, we were.
Now, if you're trying to make it walkable to be able to walk to the grocery or whatever, I get that, but
I think you should just, put some local retail that's, maybe a small coffee shop, not a big chain, a little cleaners, a little convenience store, not a big Publix or something. So that the people in the community, they want to get some milk or bread or whatever, But
how do you get in and out in that area? If you want to put it somewhere else, but I just don't see how you put it in that area, but maybe y'all are geniuses, about traffic and roads and can make it happen.
Well,
We are
also-
genius.
Yes, exactly. A lot of it is back to that thing I was talking about, the degree to which you do it, the scale of it. If you're trying to do some big commercial operation or whatever, then you're going to be generating tons of traffic, have to do tons of parking, all of that stuff. And that's in my mind, that's more than sort of the neighborhood center. Word center, because shopping centers are corrupted. But like if you think about it, like in an old historic neighborhood, there would be maybe a coffee shop, there's a cafe, there's the corner store, like the ones that people like, not like 7-Eleven.
The bodega.
Yeah, right.
Let me just also say, for everybody in this area, you're 5 to 10, this is what makes it so desirable. You are close to shopping, you are close to the hospitals, you are close to restaurants galore. You're right there at Cool Springs. And again, so I don't know why we need,
15 minutes as a crow flies, but 30 to 45 minutes as the car drives.
and it's gonna get worse because you're gonna add more houses. right?
Yeah, that's,
But still, like you alluded to, going somewhere, maybe you pick your time of day to go shopping. I mean, you don't go up. Those of us who are retired, and I'm looking around here, I'm probably all in the same demographic that poses that. But we can judge what time of day we're gonna go out. Stay away from the morning rush, noon rush, the afternoon rush. There's a few hours in the middle of the day that you can get out. Yeah, like you mentioned, going to McKay's Mill, rather than drive across Interstate 65 for us coming up on North Chapel. I'd rather go up to McKay's Mill and shop up there. time wise, it might even be longer to get up there on a good day. Going over to the other side of town, out side expressway. But yeah, I think that any kind of commercial you put there, if it's designed for anything other than foot traffic or a few parking spots for coffee or something like that, that would be foolish. You don't have that much acreage to deal with.
Really, when you
So
talk.
that's what I was saying is like, the analogy I use, is, okay, yeah, it'd be nice to have another Starbucks here. Well, we go down the street to go to Starbucks,
Yeah.
right? Is that cup of coffee, I mean, right now, is that really over 5 or 10 minutes extra that's gonna take you to cross I-65 if there's a whole bunch of retail here? There's gonna be more traffic. It's like, I don't think so. We don't need the retail on our doorstep. I'd rather,
We got plenty of retail up in Franklin. We don't need
Yeah.
retail out this way at all.
We just need to keep as much green.
We got a lot of Cedar Mont folks here, and I'll just say from my perspective, I understand their owners have purchased this land and they want to develop it, and I get all that. Our main thing is, keep going back to this, is just traffic. And we want to make sure that I can turn out of Cedar Mont, get to 96, and not be a disaster every time I leave home. And then if we could buffer this area from the church up to 96, somewhere that kind of blocks a view of whatever you do over in there and keeps that rural look. Because when you think about it, you've got that from the corner of the church here up to 96, and you've just got a very small spot here, down here where you turn into Abington Ridge, or whatever it is. That's the only place you touch Arno Road. So if we could do something to kind of buffer from the church up to 96, that'll maintain the look of Arno Road. I think that would make a lot of people happy. I understand. A lot of us here have watched Franklin. I was born and raised in Franklin. I've lived in Franklin 70 years.
Wow.
I was born in
You're like a unicorn.
I was born in Cannes, German hospital. And this high density housing is a disaster.
Different.
It has ruined Franklin. But I don't have any control over that. But if we can just maintain the character of, Cedar Mont Farm and Abington Ridge and Arno Road and do something with traffic up here, I mean, that's all I can ask for. I'll be honest with you. I hear about the green space and all that. I don't care about space, 'cause I've got my own green space. And if you lived in there, I'm sure that's wonderful, but my input into that means nothing to the overall conversation. But those two things, I think, go a long way to addressing people who live across the street.
The question becomes, though, how much development does the owner of the property have to turn a profit?
Why do you think it's high?
It's over here.
I know. So, I mean, that's why they go back to housing. And the commercial is very valuable. And,
Why do you think we want to do more of the green space so I can get my high density housing?
yeah. And so it's a balancing act, and it depends on how much is enough. How much is the owner of the property want to make out of this? I know the word greed sometimes shows up there, and let's face it, every one of us, if we had the opportunity to make a killing on something, we'd do it. Unfortunately, that's what zoning was designed for. I always joke and say, well, geez, a piece of property, if I could figure out how to make money off a pig farm in the middle of downtown Franklin, in the middle of Franklin subdivision somewhere, zoning would stop me from doing that because they would mess up everybody else around there. Because they wouldn't want a pig farm. If I could buy 5 houses, knock them all down and put the pig pens up in there, that wouldn't go too well. You name the subdivision, And so that's what zoning is all about, is to protect the area, and sometimes it does interfere with the developer and the owner of the property, what he can do with his property. I think that we've got some signs down our way, and it's called, reasonable development. That's what we're looking for. The idea of having a green space and stuff, I think it's great. As much green space you can get in there, you can get. At the same time, you don't want 300, 400, 500 homes shoved back in. That's just too much. That's too much. We're talking about the infrastructure, support, the traffic, everything else. So there's got to be a balancing act. And, so
Agree.
you
He
get,
he makes a point that I'd like to add on to a little bit. Each of us, when we bought our house, there was existing zoning. And it would not allow what you want to build there.
exactly.
We relied on City of Franklin or Williamson County to protect what we bought, because we thought we were buying something and we don't want what we thought we were buying changed on us. And we should be able to rely on our elected officials. Even if we don't get to vote for the City of Franklin elected officials, we still should be able to rely on our elected officials to maintain what we thought we were buying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well put.
But,
Very well
you know,
put.
it goes back to though, the conversation we had a little bit last night, and it wasn't as clear in the imagery. And I misread the aerial photograph. It's just grainy and black and white. But the point that I was making and I was showing is that this area has been changing all along, right? And some of the bigger parcels are the remnants of that. There's this 50 acres originally, now you're down to 8. And so what tends to happen is when we move in, we take a snapshot of the place in our mind. And that is the place, right? That's our place. And the reason I'm particularly aware of this is because part of one of the things that I love doing is studying, I call it sort of like forensic cartography. So I'll look back and see how a city changes and grows over time. And at one point, there probably were pig pens in downtown Franklin, right? And you know, things change and things grow. They were good, right? And so the challenge is that it isn't that you're unprotected by elected officials or by the zoning ordinance or whatever. You know, the state government and, you know, even at the national level and all these things, like there are ways in which people change zoning all the time. It happens. And so that's part of why that growth boundary is in place, because it really does delineate where today, right, where that line is from country to town.
I get that. And if I bought a place today, and I would buy it, that sort of being the representation. Yeah. But I've spent that time, I was once a licensed real estate salesman when I was in college. But real estate has always been a passion, something I cared about. And I researched what I was buying into when I bought it, because that's what I wanted. I didn't, when I was born, there were 143 million people in the United States of America. They now are 350 in the United States. Those people have to go somewhere. I'm not necessarily not in my backyard, but what has happened historically in this country is we keep going farther out from the big cities. I'm okay with something slightly more dense than what exists here, if it's done well, which I think you would do. But I don't want 355 units on this property. That's too dense for what's in this neighborhood. And it's not fair. Now, I know you said you think my property values are going to go up because you're going to do such a great job. I oversimplify that.
Yeah.
But I have developments around me that I've participated in similar things. And I, just like most people here, feel like I've been raped in the process. Because one, and I've said in the meetings in the city of Franklin, they said, how many people who are live in how many people actually live in the city limits? In these meetings, people raise their hands. When they didn't see enough people that lived in the city of Franklin. So basically said to us, well, we're just going to do what the developer wants because there's not enough votes here. That I don't think that's right. I don't think that's fair. I don't mean to pick on anybody here because I know there are a lot of people that work for the city of Franklin here, but
Some of the
we're-
advice that you're hearing is we've fought developments on the west side of Warren Road.
2 years, Boma. To keep
And I will
them
just
from
tell you,
connecting
when we go to
Warren.
those meetings, Bowman, Franklin, they're more interested in people who don't live in Franklin now. People who live in
More
Right.
interested in part of it.
Because the developers are gonna bring their tax dollars in, they're gonna expand the city, they're gonna bring more tax dollars in, they're gonna cram this high density housing in. And they're not thinking about us in our property. They're thinking about, I heard a lady, I heard she was very eloquent. She said, I don't know who these people are that you're talking about that are gonna move here. They're not my neighbors now. They don't live here now. Why are you more worried about them
Oh, the ones who are to come. I
that
see what
are
you're saying
that
there.
are to come than the people who live here now? And I tell you, that was the attitude. I've been to meetings with Boma where the developer got up and ran the meeting. Literally got up and ran the meeting.
And we just went to a meeting recently with, and they talked about the developer talked about the number of hours they've spent, these planning people. Okay, they work with it. We don't get to sit down for hours with the planning people. We might get 2 minutes to speak in a meeting, and that's it. We can't sit down and come in and say, look, you guys are raping us, you're screwing us. This is not exactly what you said. We didn't plan. We bought this property, when I bought my property on Split Log Road back in 91. I didn't expect Split Log Road to become what it became, but the city of Brentwood came out there and they extended the boundaries. And believe me, I was person non gratis up there in front of the city council in Brentwood many a time. And funny story is that there's a Azalea, whatever it is, park, whatever it is, development there. It's actually on the Franklin side of North Chapel Road. Of Split Log Road. And the city of Franklin asked Brentwood for access to Split Log Road. And the city Brentwood wrote back a nastygram to the folks in Franklin saying that road's not satisfactory for any development. It's not, it can't handle the traffic, unsafe, yada, yada, yada. And then 6 months later, Wayland comes in from Atlanta to build north, whatever it's called out there, 300 and something homes and then high density housing stuff out there. And Brentwood fell all over themselves for that department. So I'd go in every time before meetings and I'd read the letter that they sent down to Franklin, stopping them from having access.
I have no doubt that you do a good job developing the property. I just ask you to maintain the character of the community. And
One thing I wanted to say, we're all here together and having an open and frank conversation, is one of the wonderful things for me about getting to work all over the country is that I get to meet all kinds of people like you, often with similar concerns, right? But I also get to work with all kinds of city staff. And while sometimes you may not like the answers you get and all of that, and the elected officials as well, top notch in Franklin. I'm not saying that because some of them are sitting here. Like, honestly, I tell people.
And you've got to work with
I
them.
tell, it's not typical for us to do local projects. And so, I don't have to always worry like, oh, are they going to like what I say, even though I like them like what I say. But they're great. They really are. It's a complicated situation that we have here. It's such a desirable place. We happen to have beautiful, truly rural places, and then we have places that are sort of this hybrid, kind of like what we got here. And there's often competing interests. And we do have this urban growth boundary. And so, it is there. Y'all happen to be in this sort of gray area, being in the urban growth boundary, but in the county. And so, the one thing I'll say is, just do believe that you are getting top notch from the city, even if you don't like what they say sometimes. So I'll say that.
Brian, I don't.
I just wanted to-
I just wanted to mention, I don't have my card with me, but you're always welcome to call me. I'll answer any question. I'll give you any time you want. I'll set up meetings. And I think that you'll find that the consensus among staff is that we're happy to do that. So again, I don't have my card with me today. I will be back today at 5:30 for the last session today. And I'll bring as many cards as I can fit in my purse. And I'm happy again to sit down with any questions that you have, anything that you're concerned about, any projects you're concerned about. As best as I can help you answer questions, I will do my very best to do that. So
Because 2 minutes at the
Yeah.
podium is not
no, that's not your only opportunity to talk to staff, for sure.
But
So-
the thing is, we realized, each one of us realized, we came in and sat down and talked. We're coming in as an individual, not representing a company, we're just ourselves. So we don't have a bag of money behind us. My name's not Smith, who owns all this property around here. And I was born in the morning, but it wasn't yesterday morning. So I know the power of finance, money, and old time good old boy stuff and the way it works. We have seen it over and over again. We worked in 2018 to stop this development, the dense development that Smith wants. It took him 4 years, 6 years to come back and go again. And now y'all are giving him the same damn thing that he asked for in 2018. In fact, you're giving it to him worse.
He doesn't
why?
have an approval actually for anything. But I understand your
You
frustration.
know where that project sits right
I am a planner and
I
I
know,
always
I know,
say
I know.
I'm a low level, I'm not and
I
as you
know.
can probably tell, I'm not a good old boy either. But I will say, I will very much so, I am passionate about people. And so at the end of the day, my job is to represent the city of Franklin, yes. But my job is also to help people understand what's happening. And if they have questions, even if they live in the county, that is still part of my job. And I think our staff takes pride in wanting to make sure that the public is heard and that you understand what's happening. You can ask us questions because honestly, there's not a lot we can do to change,
Right.
but we can inform.
But this gentleman said it best. We came out here, we bought property, knowing what we were getting into, what it was like then, and we wanted to preserve that. That's why we moved here. And every one of us came here for a reason, and basically it was, we didn't want to live in a place that looks like Atlanta. Okay? I'm telling you right now, the way they're going to develop it, Franklin, Williamson County, 20 years from now, everything this side of 840 is going to look like Atlanta. And this thing's going to connect all the way to Murfreesboro. And it's going to look like Atlanta. And that's not what we came here for, is it? We came here because we loved it. And I know there's got to be growth. But like our signs and our commissions, we want responsible. Maintain what it looks like. You've got West Haven. God, we don't need West Haven. We called it East Haven in some of our meetings. You've heard us say that. We don't need an East Haven.
Smith project, you mean?
Yeah,
Farm.
Smith project, Smith Farm.
We're 20
I just
minutes
wanted-
over.
I just
Anybody
wanted
who
to make
needs to go can, but anybody who wants to keep chatting, we
I
can.
wanted to make a quick comment about that. So I'm kind of I'm a traffic engineer, I'm a bottom line guy, and I know you guys, I talked to you before about Tuesday, what's gonna happen. And voila, you're gonna have driveways in here, you're gonna say, here's our open space, here's this. I would have liked to seen some conceptual plans as, hey, this is where we might put functional, multi-density, housing, if we're gonna put in a little circle of a park around here. This is one concept, and this is how much open land. And we talked about how much open land, if we just put all individual lots, there wouldn't be as much open land. So
If we come in here with
since
that,
we don't have those concepts now, and you're gonna come up with one, with one plan, I'm thinking you almost, at the end on Tuesday, you almost have to come up with two plans. It's like, so that people can say, hey, I don't mind them. I'd rather have more open space. Like, that was one thing in the meeting. I mean, supposedly we're deciding on open space. So I didn't even get to whether people, there's kind of a balancing act. Do we want a little more open space, and will we put up with some dense housing or what? So I don't know.
If we
I
come
don't know if
in
you got
on-
enough input.
if we come in at the opening presentation and said, here's a plan that we're thinking about, how would that be different than what every developer does, right? That's the opposite of our process.
Yeah, I mean, just
That's the closing presentation in my mind.
okay.
Right.
So what are you gonna? So you're gonna come up with one single plan and say this is. I don't know what you're gonna put in it. In other words, I don't feel like you got enough information. Do we
Yeah, I
want,
think it's just
how much open
difficult.
space do we want? How much?
So abstract right now.
What do we want? Has to put in.
You
I don't know.
How many homes you're talking about?
Yeah.
Like I said,
Yeah, it's-
how much development does it take to make it profit, satisfy the profit desire of the developer? And until we know exactly how many residents you're talking about putting in this 75 acres, we're kind of still just drawing at straws.
Right.
Yeah, it's all generalities because
Right, it's all
You don't know.
generalities.
you don't know where like right here to the corner, there's only room for one road to go there. I mean, I could easily pencil that in. Okay, there's one road. What are you gonna do with that? Maybe here you could put a circle and put some houses around there, but it's like, yeah, without any driveways, without any
Come back Tuesday,
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
So next Tuesday, you're gonna.
You're gonna,
This
Sorry.
yeah,
weekend.
I'm sorry. So Tuesday, you're gonna have one plan and you're gonna, I don't know what we're gonna see Tuesday. We're gonna see,
A very detailed plan. There'll be
Okay.
roads and like lots and likely building footprints. And I mean, it's depending on how far, maybe half the building footprints, because it takes a minute. But
So are we gonna see like 200 homes? Or are we gonna see 10
There's
homes?
no yet.
I don't know.
On next Tuesday, I would.
Oh, yeah, we'll have a general idea of order of magnitude by then. But so here's the thing, for instance, like, if you think about some of the images I showed last night, I showed a large single family house on a single lot. I showed lots that were smaller, houses that were smaller and smaller lots. And so, if you have one big lot, let's say you could cut it into two lots, and now you've got two there, right? Or if we had one big lot and we had one of those like fourplex apartment houses, it looks like a house with 4 units in it, that can go on the same size lot as the big house did, right? And so ultimately, we'll have some idea of like number of lots. I hope that's my goal. Certainly have a layout. We'll certainly have open space and all of those things figured out. We may still be dialing in like mix and those sorts of things. And what we at the end of that we do is I'll stand here as long as y'all want to talk about it. Just say, oh, I like this. Oh, I don't like that. Or, so we do a Q&A session. So we'll take notes on it all, and then we'll adjust the plan accordingly as we go. And then only after months and months, we'll start the official process with the city that takes its own lengthy time. And there's the annexation hearing, and there's a envision plan amendment, and there's the PD or development plan submittal, and all of those things have their own. That's the normal process. You guys are basically been invited in to sort of see how the sausage is made and inform the recipe, right? And so all of the normal stuff will be there, but this is all the opposite of overtime. It's pre-game. There we go. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all so much. There's a meeting tonight at 5:30. Talk about housing and community character. So